Welcome back, guys. We're in a very important place today in China. This is the city of Qufu in Shandong Province. It's famous because it's the hometown of Confucius. Born here in 551 BCE, very few people in Chinese history have had such a great influence as Confucius, or to use his actual name, Kongqiu. Our journey begins here at the temple dedicated to him. So the Temple of Confucius is of imperial standard. After the Forbidden City in Beijing, it's actually the second largest complex of this standard anywhere in China. It's quite an amazing thing. The difference, the obvious difference when you come here compared to the Forbidden City though, is it's really green and lush, full of cypress trees, which are in basically every Confucian temple all over China. It's quite hard to think of anyone who's had more of an influence on Chinese culture than Confucius. Not just Chinese, actually, East Asian culture. You know, you're talking for over 2,000 years. That influence still exists today, you know, in a lot of very common aspects of Chinese life. Ancestor worship and devotion to parents and study. All of these things are very much Confucian values. So the old woodwork on this gate is from 1377. It's probably some of the oldest left in the temple. Some of these trees are insane. There's actually been a temple here to Confucius since just a couple of years after his death in 479 BCE, 2,500 years ago. It's been continually added to and developed over the years. Most of the buildings here today are Ming and Qing dynasty, but there are relics and, you know, stone carvings and things, really ancient, all over the place here, full of history. So there's a few sites in this city. There are 3 sites. They're called the Sankong, the 3 Confucian sites. They are the temple, which is where we are now, the mansion to Confucius, and also the cemetery, which has apparently 100,000 of Confucius' relatives, including Confucius, of course, buried there. It's pretty wild. There's a lot of amazing stories in this place, really. It's survived through, you know, a lot of dynastic changes. This place has always been here, you know, amazing. So there's stone stele here from every dynasty, from the Tang onwards, put here by various emperors. This one is from the Yongle Emperor of the Ming dynasty. Emperors came here, you know, to show their respects to Confucius. Confucianism did actually come kind of in and out of vogue throughout Chinese history. So during the first dynasty, the Qin dynasty, under the Emperor Qin Shi Huang, it wasn't particularly liked. They were followed a legalist system of thought. But later, after that, the Han dynasty, the first emperor of Han Gaozu, he came here, visited, and Confucianism started to become, you know, a big part of state ideology. So despite the changes in dynasty, even like foreign dynasties ruling China, this place was always held some kind of like a special, very sacred place. Shows the importance of Confucius. So this is the 6th courtyard of the 9 courtyards that are in the temple. And this is it contains 13 stone stele pavilions, which, you know, the earliest of which is from the Jin dynasty, say 11th century, 12th century, sorry. It's the biggest building in the complex. It's really, you know, on par with, you know, the larger halls at the Forbidden City, the Hall of Supreme Harmony.
The Hall of Great Achievement is the largest building in the complex and one of the grandest buildings in China, on par with the Great Halls in the Forbidden City. Some form of temple to Confucius has existed here since his death, but the buildings we see today are from late imperial China.
So these pillars with the dragons coiled around them were in so high regard as a work of art that when the Emperor Qianlong visited, they covered them over in case, he felt jealous, I guess. There was nothing in the Forbidden City as beautifully carved as these. Cool story. Hope it's true. What an amazing building. As you can see, gold tiles on the roof, which you guys should know what that means by now, right? Gold tiles on the roof mean it was built under imperial patronage. That's why the Forbidden City, these kind of imperial palaces all have golden tiles, and also here. There's a lot of other courtyards if you want to get a little bit of peace and quiet. It's huge. It is like Forbidden City size. It's such a huge area. So the Confucius family tree is the longest trace family tree in the world. It's on its 83rd generation, and they still know who his direct heir is. Currently living in Taiwan. So sometime after Confucius' death, his direct descendants were given a title, which was the Duke of Yanshang, and they lived here, or rather in the Confucius mansion just next door. They lived in real opulence, they could do anything. They didn't pay tax to the emperor. They collected tax from local people, and they paid. The emperor paid visits to them, just because their ancestor was Confucius. I do wonder what Confucius himself would have thought about that. Interesting. Anyway, for me personally, of old, Chinese schools of thought, I'd still lean more towards Taoism. Alright, we're going to head to the second Confucius site, which is the Confucius mansion. It's only about 100 meters away from the temple. Actually, it's just next to it, but you've got to come out of the temple and then walk up this tourist street. Anyway, let's go. So the Dukes of Yanshang lived here from 1055 in the Song dynasty through to the 1930s. It's actually not as stately as I was expecting, surprisingly.
The mansion was home to the Dukes of Yanshang, the descendants of Confucius, who lived a truly honoured life. As a place to visit, the mansion didn't really blow me away, but as the ticket includes all 3 Confucian sites in the city, well, you gotta do it.
Not a bad back garden though, eh? Right, onwards. The last site is the cemetery. It's called the Konglin, the Forest of Confucius. 100,000 of his descendants are buried there. It's a couple of kilometres north of here, so I want to walk it. I'm actually quite excited about this part. Weird to be excited about the cemetery, but there you go, a little bit macabre. Right, we're leaving the city wall from the north gate, about a kilometre or so further to the cemetery. It's a rather grand python marking the entrance to, well, actually it's like a long straight walk to the cemetery now. That first part of the walk back there, by the way, wow, not a lot to see. It was like a very desolate street. I was hoping there'd be food there, but there was nothing. I'm starving. Alright, let's go. The last of our 3 sites today.
The Kong family cemetery really is a unique experience. A quiet, peaceful place full of history. I didn't want to film too much of Confucius's tomb, but hopefully you get some idea of what the place is like. I walked around the cemetery for a couple of hours and found the whole experience actually quite incredible.
So some of the more important tombs have a spirit way. You've got a lined path with stone animals, stone archways, and usually some kind of guys at the end, like officials. And they've just been left to be overgrown and look wonderful and mysterious. I love it, I love it. These are beautiful, very overgrown now. A tree has fallen on him. Poor little guy. It's wonderfully peaceful in here. So the cemetery, just to give you an idea of the size, is surrounded by a 10-kilometer long wall. 100,000 of Confucius's descendants are buried here, obviously including Confucius himself, and all of the dukes of Yansheng, they're all buried here as well. So Confucius was born in what's called the spring and autumn period, right before the Warring States period, which was like an incredibly tumultuous time in Chinese history. Ending, of course, with the unification of all of the states into the Qin dynasty under the Emperor Qin Shi Huang of the terracotta warriors fame. During this Warring States period, obviously a lot of things developed quickly, as they tend to do during times of war and strife. And during this time of war and strife emerged the 100 schools of thought, which includes Confucianism, Taoism, legalism, the school of Yin and Yang, Moism. There's heaps of them. So a lot of these schools of thought are long lost, largely due to the beginning of Imperial China under Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. Burning of the books, it was called. Destruction of, knowledge. I think he said, burn the books and bury the sages. Pretty wild. It was also later, after the end of the Qin dynasty and the beginning of, going into the Han dynasty, also resulted in a big loss of literature. However, some of these schools of thought, for example Confucianism, survived. Confucianism and Taoism, of course, are the two most important Chinese ideologies. Buddhism, of course, is Indian in origin. But these three things are so fundamental in Chinese society, life and history, even today. I've had a lovely time here. I think if you came during holidays or in the summer, it would be a very different experience. It's still just before Spring Festival here in winter, so it's very, very quiet. It's as quiet as it'll be all year, I think. Lovely and peaceful. It's such an important place obviously for Chinese people. It can't really be overstated how important Confucius is in the history and the culture of this country. It's just overwhelming. The ideas of filial piety, and ancestor worship are still so deeply rooted in life here. Alright guys, I'm going to wrap it up there, I think, for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. It's a fascinating place, and it's deeply important in this country. So I'll see you in the next one, wherever that may be, back onto the canal and heading south. It's starting to get warm, almost time to not have a coat on, which is very nice. It's about 4 degrees today. So until the next video guys, all the best, take care, and bye bye.